Every commercial airplane in the world is grounded on a schedule. Whether anything went wrong with it or not, it goes into maintenance. Think about that for a minute. The airline doesn't wait until an engine fails to decide it might need maintenance. It inspects it before it fails. They replace parts before they wear out. They intentionally take a perfectly functioning airplane and put it out of service so that it can continue to function. And I've been thinking about how incredibly different that is from the way many of us treat our bodies. We wait until something breaks. We wait until we can't sleep, until we're exhausted, until our back hurts, until the migraines start, until our hormones feel completely out of control, until we can't do what it is that we used to be able to do. And then we say, what happened to me? I think I know what happened to some of us. We never learned that maintenance was part of being human. I certainly didn't. Hi, I'm Dr. Jodi Medell. I'm an integrative and functional medicine practitioner with 30 years of experience, actually more than 30 years of experience as a doctor of physical therapy. I have created the Healing Continuum and the Healing Continuum method. Anyway, back to the airplane, back to maintenance. I've shared in other conversations that I've spent most of my life being incredibly driven, and I still am. I'm driven with my running, my working, my biking, taking care of people, being a mom, building things, solving problems, moving on to the next thing. And for most of my life, I would have called those my personality traits. That's just Jodi. That's just the way I do life. This girl Jodi, she's driven, she's independent, she's disciplined, and she doesn't sit still very well. And I was really proud of those qualities. And in fact, actually, I still am. But I'm beginning to understand them differently because I've realized something about myself. I'm really good at acceleration. What I'm not good at is braking or taking the foot off the accelerator. So maybe you're like that too. Can you work all day and then somehow find another gear when something needs to get finished? Can you exercise even when you're tired? Can you take care of everybody else even when you're running on empty? Do you function beautifully in a crisis and in fact switch up a few gears? But you feel strangely uncomfortable when there's absolutely nothing you need to do. Now that last one, that's important. Because what if your inability to rest isn't really about the rest itself? What if it's truly about safety? Our autonomic nervous system has different states that help us respond to what life brings. For just the sake of simplicity today, I want to talk about two sides of this system. The sympathetic nervous system, it mobilizes us into action. It is our accelerator. It helps us respond to challenge. It allows us to have heart rate changes, blood pressure changes. It allows our glucose to become available for energy. It takes our attention and sharpens it. We're on point. Our stress hormones are released, and that helps us mobilize energy as well. Our body becomes prepared to do something when our parasympathetic nervous system is on. And that is absolutely brilliant. We need that system. I don't want anyone leaving this conversation thinking being in sympathetic nervous system activation is bad, because it isn't. The problem is when we press that accelerator, we stay on that accelerator, and we don't get off that accelerator. So the problem is forgetting that we're allowed to get off that accelerator. Because what happens if we never come off that accelerator? You know, after the challenge passes, the body needs to shift. It needs opportunities to slow down. It needs opportunities to allow digestion, sleep, repair, recovery, immune regulation, restoration. We often associate those functions with the parasympathetic nervous system activity. And that's when the accelerator comes off and the brake goes on. But even lifting up off the accelerator is enough to get the parasympathetic nervous system to engage. It's not really an on-off switch. And the physiology is more complicated than what I'm making it out to be. And it's not simply that one system is better than the other. It's both and. We need them both, and we need to use them both. But here's the concept that really matters. Your body was meant to move between sympathetic nervous system activation and parasympathetic nervous activation. If you have activation, you have recovery. If you have challenge, you have restoration. If you have effort, you get rest. The ability to move between these two states is called resilience. And some of us have become extraordinarily good at only one side of the equation. And if you think of this in terms of optimization, if you're really good at the accelerator and you're really good at being in sympathetic nervous system, and I'm going to call it overdrive because you're staying there a long time, you're only working in 50% of what's available to you. If you become really good at getting to the other 50%, the parasympathetic side, and you increase your resilience, you have all of this available to you, not just this. Just think about that. So I started recognizing this inability to get off the accelerator in myself. There are times I'm just physically exhausted and wiped out, but I still have difficulty stopping. My body can be giving me every signal in the world that it needs recovery. And yet another part of me says, oh, just finish that. Just do that one more thing. It won't take so long. You can rest when you're done. That's fine. Except done never really comes. There's always something else to do. But why is it that rest feels so wrong and so uncomfortable? I say this is where survival as personality becomes really interesting to me. Because if your nervous system learned early in life that being alert was useful, that anticipating problems was useful, and that being productive kept things under control, and that taking care of everybody helped maintain stability, then activation didn't just become something you did. It became familiar. It became safe. And feeling safe in the familiar, even if there are other signals saying that it's not good for you, it's a much easier place to be in than the unfamiliar. So now, imagine asking the nervous system to rest. You sit down, nothing needs you, there's really nowhere you need to go, but instead of feeling peaceful and enjoying the quiet moment, you feel super uncomfortable. You start to think about what you should be doing instead of resting. So you might pick up your phone, you clean something, you decide, hey, I've got some energy, I might as well exercise again. Maybe answer another email, and maybe suddenly you become very interested in working on some closet project you have going on. Anything except doing nothing. We laugh about it. I'm laughing about it now because we call ourselves type A. I've called myself type AAA in the past. We say that's just how I'm wired. But lately I've become super curious about that sentence. What if that's not how you're wired? What if that wiring was created in response to hypervigilance as a kid, created in a response to being on, pressing the accelerator, creating a situation where you felt safe? Well, if that wiring was created for you to feel safe, being in sympathetic nervous system overdrive, same wiring can change. And it can change so that you can feel safe in the parasympathetic nervous system, in rest, digest, recovery. And that leads us to neuroplasticity. Our brains are so capable of changing the wiring. And that's what neuroplasticity is, the ability of our brains to change given the stimulus, the stresses we give it. So our nervous systems can change through experience. The patterns we repeat become so much easier to access over time. If you've practiced vigilance, high performance, pressing the accelerator for decades, then you're going to be really good at vigilance. You've practiced pushing through. You're going to be really good at pushing through because that's what you know to do. If you've practiced immediately responding to every demand, eventually there may be no space between the demand and your response. Something happens, you're already moving. But that space too can change. And in fact, I'm going to switch response to react. Because when there is no thought really put into activation or stimulus activation, that's a reaction. That's not a response, which has a breath in it or a pause in it. So this may be one of the biggest realizations I've had with my own personal healing. I used to think that learning to rest meant I needed to become better at relaxing. Now, I don't think that's quite right. I don't think I need to become better at experiencing stillness. I think I need to become better at feeling safe experiencing the stillness and trying to hang out in that stillness without escaping from it. Those are very different things. I'm not trying to force myself into some perfectly calm, parasympathetic state. I'm really trying to give my nervous system small, microdosed experiences that say, nothing is required of you right now, and you're okay. Now that's information to the nervous system. And when we accumulate these microdoses of it's okay to be still, it's okay to breathe, it's okay to rest. Those repeated pieces of information begin to build something new. Here's another piece that fascinates me. It's that space that I talked about before between stimulus and response. For someone who has lived in survival, that space becomes very small. Someone needs something? Oh yes. There's a problem? I'll fix it. Something isn't working? Try harder. Feeling tired? Keep going. That response happens before we even have realized we've made a decision. So that's why I call it a reaction. It's been hardwired in. So part of the whole healing process is learning to create that pause. Just enough space to ask, do I actually need to respond to this right now? Do I actually need to do anything? What does my body need? Truly, what does my body need before I actually or automatically say yes? Okay, let's go back to that airplane. Imagine if an airplane could decide whether it deserved maintenance. I'm fine. I flew yesterday. Nothing's broken. We have places to go. Come on, let's go. People are depending on me. We would never accept that, right? Silly, but it makes a point. Because we understand that maintenance isn't something a plane earns after it breaks. Maintenance is what allows it to keep flying. Maybe rest for us kind of works that same way. Maybe recovery isn't the reward we receive after we've accomplished everything. Maybe recovery is part of the entire system that allows us to live the life we're trying so hard to live. So here's what I want you to do this week. Don't try becoming better at resting. Just notice what happens when you stop. What does your body do? Where does your mind go? Do you immediately reach for stimulation? Do you immediately start planning? Do you feel guilty? Do you feel restless? Do you feel super uncomfortable? Do you suddenly remember those 17 items on your to-do list that you should be doing? Don't judge it. It's not meant to be judged. Just become curious and ask yourself, really, do a deep dive with this. What does my nervous system believe would happen if I actually stopped for this moment? Because maybe your inability to rest was never a discipline problem. Maybe it was adaptation. Maybe staying alert at one point really helped you. Maybe being productive protected you. Maybe being the strong one that created stability in a world that was so unstable kept you safe. Those strategies definitely deserve respect. That's what got us here, right? But here's what I'm beginning to understand. We don't have to destroy our survival strategies. We don't have to fight them. We certainly need to thank them. But we then need to begin showing our bodies that something else is now possible. Because the beautiful thing about the nervous system is that if it learns survival and having the accelerator on and that feeling safe, it can also learn that taking the foot off the accelerator, even pressing the brake, and allowing recovery can also feel safe. And maybe healing begins with something incredibly small. A pause, a breath, a moment when nothing is required of you. And instead of immediately accelerating again, you stay. You stay just long enough for your body to begin learning, I'm okay here too. That's a conversation for the week. If you're beginning to recognize yourself in this idea of survival as personality, please subscribe to my channel and stay with me, because we're going to keep unpacking all of this together week by week. Not just what survival looks like, but how we begin teaching the body that it doesn't have to live that way anymore. And remember, your body is always communicating. The question isn't whether it's speaking, the question is whether we've learned how to listen. I'll see you next week.